everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this Football Friday. We got a lot going on in sports, particularly in the sport of football. By the way, baseball as well. So we had just absolute sadness, and I feel horrible for the city of Oakland, California. They lost the Warriors, who y'all know I'm a huge fan of. They lost the Raiders. They lost the A's yesterday. So listen, man, thoughts and prayers with the city of Oakland right now. They have gone through it in a sports context. Also, again, the playoff chase. Just as a Red Sox fan, we're an ally to the Mets. I'm pulling for the Mets to make it to the finish, to get through the series with Milwaukee and beat the Atlanta Braves in a doubleheader on Monday. I want to see the Mets in the playoffs. Okay, much rather see the Mets go deep in the freaking Yankees. Anyways, I said it was a football show, and we got a lot of football to get into. The Vol View in about 20 to 25 minutes. Yes, Tennessee's not playing this weekend, but I have a very strong take to give on my Vols that may shock a lot of people. Stay tuned for that in 20 to 25 minutes. NFL predictions, upset of the week, Bryson's Bleak bet, and my 3 games this week. 4, if I were a bet man. Feel good about all of them. I really do. I listen, rough start for me to start this football season, but I feel good about him. So let's get set. Let's get ready to go. But first, so last night the Dallas Cowboys beat the New York Giants 20-15 in the Meadowlands. And it was, for all intents and purposes, kind of a must-win for Dallas. I mean, listen, folks have waxed poetic about what their schedule ahead was going to look like. But if Dallas falls to 1-3, right, you got at my Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a tough one against the best defense in football. Then you got to come home. But as for the Detroit Lions, by the way, Dallas has yet to win a home game. We'll see if they can do so in week 6. Then they got to bye. Then they got to go to San Francisco, a team that has absolutely owned them in every which way, okay? You got to deal with at the Atlanta Falcons. That's a problem. Then you got to go back home to play Philadelphia Eagles. You stay home, but you play the Houston Texans. Then you go to Washington. I mean, it is an absolute gauntlet for Dallas moving forward. They had to win that game last night, and to their credit, they did. Would have been nice if Brandon Aubrey, hit what would be for him a chip shot, a 50-yard field goal. Would have been nice if they'd have covered. That'd have been great. But really, for Dallas, watching that game last night, I couldn't help but think of this. Because we know, I say all the time, I've said it for 3 years on this show, it's like quarterbacks league. Like we could talk about, listen, coaches matter. No question coaches matter. I can't emphasize that enough. Your roster, what you have around you, a defense, weapons, all that all matters. No question about it. But it's all relevant if you don't have that guy at the quarterback position. And I could not help but ask myself the question, and I'll ask you, the audience, those that are watching right now. Take Dak Prescott off the Dallas Cowboys. Take Daniel Jones off the New York Giants. Insert who's the guy we all agree is a pretty average quarterback. Like who's pretty average? Justin Fields maybe. I'm a Steelers fan, but I am objective. Justin Fields. Let's talk about the low end starter, high end backups as I call them. Andy Dalton, Gardner Minshew, like guys that are amazing backups. You'd prefer they not be your starters. Let's take those guys for example. Let's put them in the starting lineup for both these squads. Giants win that game by double digits. And that's not necessarily, folks who know the show long enough know that I am as big of a Dak Prescott fan as there is. This isn't a Dak Prescott thing. What this is more than anything is, if they don't have that guy, talking about the Cowboys, of course, and they don't have CeeDee Lamb, who got back on the same track. He took accountability after his poor performance against the Ravens and was really, really good. CeeDee Lamb, 7 catches for 98 yards and caught a 55-yard bomb for a touchdown. And again, those plays like that makes the difference in obviously a road divisional matchup in which you win by 5 points. Outside of those guys, folks, Dallas isn't very good. And my guy, Mike Guido, shout out to him, Bi-Coastal Baseball, co-founder of the Grid Network. He was on this from day one. Like, this isn't a good team. Guido went so far as to say they could win 7 games. I didn't go that far. I actually said they'd win 11 and win the NFC East again, because my case was, well, it's kind of the same roster, and that same roster with an MVP candidate quarterback and an all-world receiver, despite average coaching and a below-average roster, did win 12 games in the division. And I still think Dallas is going to eke out the NFC East. Washington is still a little too young. The Giants, we know they aren't there yet. And as for Philadelphia, love their roster, don't necessarily trust their quarterback, and I don't like their OC and head coach whatsoever. Do not trust them in big spots. Just off of Dak, they'll be fine. We could show you the numbers. What Dak Prescott has done against this New York Giants team. I said on Wednesday's show, and I predicted this game, I said, matchups aside, because the Giants have the better coach, Brian Dable. Like I was hearing folks say today, oh man, was it Chris Canty? Respect to Chris Canty, former NFL player, but I heard him say on ESPN, this Brian Dable may not survive this season. I'm thinking, I cannot imagine sitting there for 3 hours watching the football game that we watched last night, coming home with the takeaway. Yeah, Brian Dable's the problem. Malik Neighbors, excellent. Giants have a solid defense and an improved offensive line. But the Cowboys have Dak Prescott, who still owns the Giants. We can show you his numbers since 2017. It's pretty good. 271 pass yards per game, 28 tuds, 6 picks, completes 68% of his throws, 111 passer rating, and he is 13-0. Last time Dak lost to the Giants, Obama was president. Mahomes was at Texas Tech. That's where we were at in America. But Dak, 13-0 in his last 13 against the Giants. That is tied for the second longest win streak against one team in the history of the National Football League. So if nothing else, you got that. And Dak wasn't amazing. Again, he had 221 yards, but he didn't complete 81% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, QBR 0 to 100 of 74. That's really good. And a pass rating of 125. That's really, really good. But if you watch that game, if you're a Cowboys fan, ran the ball fine. Kind of what you normally do. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, to be honest, was your best running back in certain aspects of this game, right? Dak was accurate. Dak was really good, but he's usually that. The Cowboys defense, to their credit, did stop the Giants' run game, a run game headlined by Devin Singletary, who's not exactly Alvin Kamara or Derrick Henry last time I checked. Both of those guys ran wild on the Dallas defense the last couple of weeks prior to this week. It's not that talented of a football team. And by the way, the numbers bear it out against the Giants. Like the Giants, you can make the case. You take the quarterbacks off the team. Daniel Jones, we know Dak's way better than Daniel Jones, but take them off and just replace them with league average quarterbacks. Say they replace them just like 2 carbon copies. Despite Dallas still, again, having the better quarterback, much better quarterback. Giants were kind of better than Dallas throughout most of the night. They had more first downs, more passing first downs, better third down efficiency, more total plays, more total yards, more passing yards, way fewer penalties. Cowboys had almost triple the number of penalties the Giants did. And time of possession, they dominated Dallas, despite really not having that much of a run game, which is the ironic part about it, is that Dallas couldn't get off the field. The Giants, it reminded you a lot of the Washington Commanders game, the difference is Giants were able to cash it in the end zone, even though they lost the game. The Giants moved the ball really well in Dallas. They just came up short in the red zone. They came up, empty in a lot of these cases, had to settle for field goals. This should not have been a game in many aspects. And Dallas isn't creative in offense. Dak is force-feeding one guy because it's the only guy that he trusts, because the only guy who's earned his trust. The O-line got worked again. Tyler Guyton, he's a rookie. He's only 4 games into his career. So we can't judge what he's going to be the rest of his career just off these first 4 games. But he has not been very good. He has not been very good. This running game is non-existent, and the defense, which, by the way, just lost Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence for potentially 2 of the next 3 weeks. So this is going to be a big stretch for Dallas, and in order to win these games. And by the way, if you're a Cowboys fan, the optimistic side of you could say, well, how did we win 12 games last year? Well, we had an MVP candidate at quarterback. We had CeeDee Lamb. And that was about it. Jake Ferguson's fine. I actually kind of like Jake Ferguson, but he's nothing special. Brandon Cooks can we put him on watch? I think we're starting to get into that. And listen, Brandon Cooks a good dude. I got nothing against the guy. Brandon Cooks a good dude and has been a Dak supporter, by the way, from day one. He was one of the most vocal supporters of Dak when he was going through the contract negotiations with Jerry Jones. But with that said, and I said coming into the season, Brandon Cooks on his 5th team. Like there's a reason for that. He's fine, but there's a reason that he didn't even finish second in the Cowboys in receiving. That was their tight end, Jake Ferguson. And there's a reason that CeeDee Lamb had almost 1,000. This is a true stat, folks. Almost 1,000 more receiving yards than the second leading receiver on the Dallas Cowboys. That represents 988 to be exact. That represents the largest discrepancy in the National Football League a season ago. It's 4, it's 88, and that's it. So watching that game last night, well, CeeDee Lamb was really good, and Dak was efficient, didn't make mistakes, didn't turn the ball over, took what the defense gave him, was aggressive in certain throws to CeeDee Lamb, was dead. There was a 2nd and 9 early in the first quarter. There's not many throws that can, not many quarterbacks can make the throw Dak made. It was a 2nd and 9. It was just a quick little slant. It wasn't anything crazy on first glance. But when Amazon showed the replay, the defensive back is all over CeeDee Lamb, almost to the point where they could have called PI. And Dak put it perfectly right there for CeeDee Lamb, and the timing was perfect. Like CD, now after the holdout, he's 4 games in, that the timing is starting to look better between those two. But again, Giants, more first downs, better time of possession, way less penalties. A lot of that's coaching. And frankly, a lot of that is the fact that the Giants, in terms of the receiving department, that Dallas has better, it's better in that regard just because of CeeDee Lamb. But Malik Neighbors is coming. I'm not sure what else he has around him, but Malik Neighbors is coming. The Giants O-line, I watched that game last night. They're better than Dallas's. Full stop. They're better than Dallas's O-line. The Giants have a solid defense, or actually a really good defensive front. Like some folks were talking about coming into the season, could the Giants be like a fringe top 6 or 7 defensive line? I thought they worked Dallas's O-line throughout the course of that game. The Giants moved the ball effectively. Now Micah Parsons is out. Now DeMarcus Lawrence is hurt, according to Mike McCarthy, even worse than Parsons is. So, listen, I don't like listen, we're 9 days out of this game. But I don't like Dallas' chances at all against my Steelers. At all. On the road, yeah, you get extra time to prepare, but it's Mike Tomlin versus Mike McCarthy. I'm going to go Tomlin. It's the Cowboys with 2 elite players against the Steelers defense who has bare minimum 4 elite players on that side of the ball. I'd go 5. Joey Porter Jr., Minka Fitzpatrick, Patrick Queen, Alex Highsmith, and obviously the great TJ Watt. So I don't like Dallas in that matchup. They come home for Detroit now. They're home for that game, and Dak has had a lot of success in his career when facing Jared Goff, but Goff has the significantly better roster. Then he goes to San Francisco. I'm just going to say on the out front, Dallas is going to lose that game. Like, they are not beating the Niners. Niners will probably be healthier by that point. Kyle Shanahan is, again, McCarthy's okay. Shanahan's like one of the 3 best football coaches on planet Earth. It's an unfair matchup in that regard. At Atlanta, I like Dallas's matchup in that regard. Dak, and when he's faced Kirk Cousins in his career, has been unbelievable. He's been great against Philadelphia. I like Dallas in that matchup as well. Houston, we'll see. So, but these next 3 games for the Cowboys, I could very easily see them being 2-5 going into that Atlanta game. I really could. So winning last night, kudos. There's no such thing as a bad win. But that was a reality check for the Cowboys. It's not a very good football team. They're just carried by an awesome quarterback and an awesome wide receiver. Full stop. See what we got in the comments. AJ from the Cowboys Can Fan Podcast. What's up, my man? He says, what could the Cowboys do to change your mind? Well, it depends on what you mean, AJ, by change your mind. If you're talking about viewing them as a Super Bowl contender, I mean, they'd have to revamp the roster at the trade deadline, and it's not like the NBA where you can make a few moves and all of a sudden you feel differently about your team. Like, remember when the Lakers a couple of seasons ago, they were like under 500 and LeBron was playing amazing and so was AD, but the ancillary pieces just were not cutting it. And so the Lakers went out and got some guys and ended up going to the darn conference finals. That doesn't happen in the NFL. Maybe if you add one player, like when the 49ers added Christian McCaffrey 2 years ago, you can make moves like that. I've suggested Dallas wouldn't be out of their mind to go after Devontae Adams, because I do not believe Devontae Adams will be a Raider by season's end. But I don't see special. I mean, I look at the rest of the NFC, even San Francisco, when they're healthy, listen, we know what the Niners are capable of when they're healthy. They're a juggernaut. When Detroit's healthy, they had San Francisco down by 17 on the road in a conference championship game. You need to talk about the Atlanta Falcons. That's more projection than anything, I'll admit. But Kirk is the best quarterback that they've had in a long time. Certainly since Matt Ryan, but since peak Matt Ryan, you got great weapons, run game, defense has some good pieces. We saw what the Saints did to Dallas. That kind of goes without saying. And we're just talking about the NFC here. So, I mean, even Philadelphia, and I do think Dallas is going to beat Philly for the division because I don't trust coaching at all with Philadelphia. They have a way better roster than the Cowboys do. No question about it. So, if the question is what could they do to change my mind in terms of them being a championship contender, this season, nothing. I don't see it. So, listen, Listen, Dallas will still be relevant. That's not, Jerry Jones will do everything in his power to ensure that that's the case. In that regard, he's an elite marketer. He's just a terrible, terrible general manager. And it feels like folks are coming around to it. Like I heard Dan Orlovsky say on Get Up. And by the way, Orlovsky, who, by the way, a lot of respect for, I think does a great job at ESPN. But he has not exactly been the biggest Dak Prescott cheerleader. That's putting it mildly. I would not call Dan a Dak Prescott hater like a Shady McCoy. But like Dan has been critical of Dak. And he said on yesterday's Get Up early in the morning on ESPN that I think his quote was, no franchise has set up their quarterback more for failure than the Dallas Cowboys have with Dak Prescott. To which I say, Dan, welcome to the party. We opened 2 years ago. Like this, I remember coming on my show. Dallas lost a week 1 game to the Tampa Bay Bucs. This was Tom Brady's last year. I remember very, very well. And I remember coming on this show the day after, the Monday after, and saying, I don't know what everybody watched, but specifically on offense, Dallas is not very good. And by the way, they still had Tyron Smith. They still had some guys that were fine. Ezekiel Elliott was closer to his prime at that point. But I'm like, CeeDee Lamb's really good, and not very good after that. There was some Noah Browns. There was, God bless him, Michael Gallup. Just nothing special. Look at the contenders. Mahomes has Kelsey, who saves his best for the playoffs, and Rashee Rice. All of a sudden, look at Rashee Rice. This kid is really, really good. Okay? It's not good. Crap, the Texans got 3. Texans got 3 really good receivers. Dak has 1, and then, like, as the great Bill Parcells would say, Jags after that. Brandon Cooks in year 11 is your second best receiver. Probably not in very good shape. Brandon Cooks had 1 100-yard game last year. Just for what that's worth. So again, this upcoming schedule for Dallas is tough. And again, as far as the Giants, as far as Giants, again, I heard Chris Canty say this morning on ESPN, like, man, Brian Dable is not going to survive this season. And I'm seeing a lot of Brian Dable criticism today. And my response to that is, again, I'll put it up one more time. This graphic. They were better than Dallas in most of the important stats. First downs, passing first downs, third down efficiency, total plays, total yards, passing yards, fewest penalties, 4-11. Dallas had 11 penalties, 8 of them in the first half. Giants had 4 total. And then they beat the Cowboys by 11 minutes in time of possession, despite not running the ball well. So what does that tell you? Daniel Jones was pretty good. Yeah, his stat line will say that, he threw the late interception, but that was more of a kind of a Hail Mary, last gasp type of throw. Like, it counts on the stat sheet just like the rest of them, but we know all interceptions are not created equal. But Daniel Jones, 29 of 40, 281, passer rating of QBR 59. Like, he wasn't bad. We've seen some bad Daniel Jones performances over the last couple of seasons, even despite having Brian Dable. But, we're talking about a guy. Josh Allen and we'll see what Josh Allen does this year, because I think we could get a different level from this guy if that's even comprehensible. But Josh Allen's best statistical years, Brian Dable was his coach. Like, Josh Allen kind of regressed a little bit in 2022 and then the first half of 2023 without Brian Dable. It wasn't until Joe Brady came in that we started to see, okay, there's Josh Allen. There's the great quarterback that can potentially get the Bills to the promised land. This is the guy had so many folks fooled about Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones threw 15 touchdown passes the year the Giants got to the playoffs. 15, and he got a $40 million per year contract. Last season, in terms of average annual salary, up until Dak signed his deal, Dak and Danny were making the same amount of money. That's stable. Malik Neighbors. There was, Shannon Sharp. I was watching Nightcap. Shout out to Shannon Sharp and Ocho. And Shannon made a point, and I don't necessarily disagree. He said if the Giants had a better quarterback, they probably would have won this game. There were some throws to Malik Neighbors that he had open and just missed some of those. So listen, I've said coming into the season, I thought there was a shot Dable would get fired. And I said he'd be one of the first quarterbacks off the market. If the Giants and the Mara family, Joe Shane, these guys decide to move on from this coach, if I were Philadelphia, I'd call him. If I were the Jacksonville Jaguars, there's going to be, oh my gosh. Let me throw this out there. Just throw it out there. Let's say the Giants season, they're 1-3 now. Let's say the Giants don't play very well and Brian Daboll gets fired. Brian Daboll, Caleb Williams in Chicago. I'm just saying, Daboll gets the best out of his quarterbacks. If he can make Daniel Jones competent, the heck he can do with Caleb Williams. I mean, I'm just saying, I was really, really shocked at some of the post-game reaction to Brian Daboll. Really shocked in a major way. Quickly, before we go to break, I did want to say, so we've got, in terms of Major League Baseball, first of all, again, and I said this at the top of the show, I said this in the open of the show, I genuinely feel terrible for Oakland sports fans. I feel terrible for that city. So I'm a Golden State Warriors fan. I have rooted for this team since the 2013-14 season. They kind of caught my eye during the 2013 playoffs when Steph Curry went on the run that he went on. I'm like, man, who is this guy? Like this Steph Curry guy, he's amazing. And so I became a fan of the Warriors at that point. I could have never dreamt that this team could have reached the heights that they did in terms of being an incredible dynasty, and in 2017 being the single greatest basketball team to ever hit the floor. Oakland is part of what fueled that. Oakland is part of what made me a Warriors fan. I've never been to Oakland. I've never been to that city. But just the passion, the energy. Oracle Arena, y'all, listen, I've never been. But there's certain arenas and stadiums, you can feel it through the TV. You don't have to be there. You could feel the energy. Oh, Oracle was almost at the top of that list. When Oracle got rocking, I mean, listen, yeah. Google Baron Davis dunk against the Utah Jazz in the 07 playoffs, the We Believe Warriors, and see how loud Oracle Arena gets. That place could get crazy, like literally shaking. And so, again, nothing against San Francisco. I feel like the Warriors should have been able to stay in Oakland. I blame a lot of the, a lot of the management in that city for blowing that. And again, I get San Francisco, Silicon Valley. It's more corporate. I get that, but Chase Center can get loud. It can, because the Warriors still have a very passionate fan base. It can't replicate Oracle. Part of it was how the arena was designed. Again, that's another discussion for another day. Oakland loses the Warriors in June of 2019 after we lose the finals to Toronto. They lose the Raiders in that same year, 2019, in that December, 6 months later, and then 5 years after that, they lose the Oakland A's. Like this, I watched a lot of that game yesterday when they were playing the Texas Rangers, and I never thought I'd watch an A's-Rangers game in late September when both teams are mathematically out, but just because of the history of it, genuinely feel terrible for that city. Genuinely. I mean, the fact that nothing against Sacramento, but the fact that Sacramento's got a professional sports team and Oakland has none, it's a shame. It really, really is. Because the energy in Oracle was unbelievable. The energy at the Coliseum, particularly for the Raiders, was like different. The Black Hole, nothing against Vegas. They did a good job, and it was a great Super Bowl destination for Kansas City and San Francisco last year. And Vegas is a great city, but man, like it feel genuinely bad for the city of Oakland. They did not deserve what they got at all, at all whatsoever. So that's my rant on Oakland. As far as the baseball playoff chase, I mean it's gotten good. So the Yankees won the AL East. Hang the banner. Congratulations. Yeah, we need to. You guys want to take a bow? You want a cookie? Like you want to. I mean, come on, man. What we talk about? So the Yankees probably going to edge out Cleveland for the top seed in the American League. Cleveland's already won the Central, and Houston's already won the AL West. And the wild card, obviously, the Baltimore, because of the loss to the Yankees, they're locked into that first wild card spot. And then you got a race. So Kansas City and Detroit are going to be in. Detroit's been unbelievable over the last really month and a half. I think they got the best record in baseball since like August 11th or something. They've been incredible. So Kansas City, Detroit, sorry, Twins, you're not getting in. They're 3 games back of Kansas City and Detroit with 3 to go. It would take a historic collapse in order for the Twins to get in. So the Twins are out. So Kansas City and Detroit battling out for that 5-6 spot in the playoffs. That'll be fun to watch. But I'll tell you what, it is a Detroit can beat Houston. Detroit can absolutely beat Houston. Don't be shocked if they win a wild card series in advance. And as far as the National League, Phillies have locked up the East. Milwaukee locked up the Central. Dodgers again. I think 11th time in the last 12 years or something like that. They've won the NL West rather. And then the wild card, Padres are pretty much locked in at the 4. And then you got a chase. You got the Mets and the Diamondbacks tied for that 5 and 6 spot, and the Braves, the Atlanta Braves, despite what's been kind of a disappointing year, only 1 game back, and as well as the fact the Mets and the Braves, because of some weather issues, because of the hurricane, respect and prayers for everybody out there dealing with this hurricane right now. But that game, or that series got postponed. The last 2 games of the series got postponed to Monday, so a doubleheader to potentially decide who gets in the playoffs. Listen, I've always said, and I'm not just saying this because I know Mets fans, Alfred Parcell Jr., Barry Grant Jr., but as a Red Sox fan, and we're, of course, mathematically eliminated because our front office is cheap and doesn't take big swings anymore, evidently, and we'll see if that continues this offseason. But as a Red Sox fan, you're not exactly going to find me in Queens, New York with a Mets hat on, sitting next to Grimace. But at the same time, enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's like an allyship, right? It's like during World War II, Stalin, Churchill, and FDR. Like FDR and Churchill fundamentally disagreed with Stalin virtually across the board, but they had the same common enemy: Nazi Germany. I mean, that was it. So that's how I feel. I'm not comparing the Yankees to Nazis, obviously. This is a sports show in a sports context, but I cannot live in a world where the New York Yankees are the World Series champions. And I'm getting very, very nervous that they could at least get to the Fall Classic for the first time since, I believe, 2009. Was 2009 the last time they got there? I think it was. Yeah. Which is the last time they won the World Series. So Mets, I hope y'all get in. Best of luck to you. Lindor's not the NL MVP. That should be Shohei Ohtani unanimously. So there's my baseball birthday. And we'll talk more baseball. I may have Mike Guida on the show, maybe have Alfred on the show to talk about baseball over the course of the next few weeks. October is, listen, it is the best month of the year in the world of sports. Baseball playoffs, NFL, college football, we're mid-season, NBA starting. If you're a hockey fan, hockey starts. I mean, it's the best month of the sports calendar, bar none. So, Ballview coming up next. Be back right after the break. You are watching Carving It Up Live. Be back in a minute. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So we do a segment every Friday night on the show. It is called The Vol View. We did it last week. I am a massive Tennessee Volunteers fan, and it's safe to say the first part of this football season has been going mighty well for the Big Orange. Now, they do not play this weekend because it's an off week. It's open part of their schedule. This is a bye week. No Tennessee football tomorrow. That said, I did want to touch on something with Tennessee because they did just play Oklahoma last week in a big nationally televised game. College Game Day was in Norman, and Blake Shelton was the guest picker. And Lee Corso, shout out to my man Lee Corso, picked Tennessee, put on that big old smoky mascot hat. That was awesome. But I have a take of the Tennessee Volunteers that I think my fellow members of Big Orange Nation will greatly appreciate. So here we go. The Vol View starts right now.
in Tennessee.
Yes, indeed. We are back. It is football time in Tennessee. So, listen, obviously, Tennessee doesn't have a game this week. It's an open part of their schedule. That said, I did want to touch on Tennessee for just a moment because last week they took on the Oklahoma Sooners in Norman. College Game Day was there. Hold on. Looks like we're dealing with some technical difficulties. The hurricane has been running. We've gotten aspects of it here in East Tennessee. So as long as the connection is good, we can continue. So, okay, here we go. So, anyways, with that in mind, Tennessee played Oklahoma, won the game 25-15 over the Sooners. It was not an offensive masterclass by any stretch of the imagination. Nico Iamaleava, 13 for 21, 194 yards, and a touchdown, but he did lose 2 fumbles. Tennessee's run game was, well, active, 52 carries for $151, but only 2.9 yards per. That said, I had the Tennessee Volunteers as a playoff team coming into this year. I said my prediction was they'd be the 9 seed in the college football playoff. I think they had them, I guess, at that point, take on like 8-ranked Notre Dame or something like that once we get to the playoff this December. And yet, somehow, some way, they've actually exceeded my expectations. Not only because of the fact that they were ranked 5th in the country, but I already knew Tennessee's offense was good. That's Josh Heupel. He's one of the best offensive coaches in America. Nico Iamaleava. By the way, I did get his name right this week. I've been practicing, right? I've been stumbling over from time to time. I've gotten it. Nico Iamaleava has been really, really good. Hasn't quite hit his ceiling, but has been really efficient. He's made a couple of throws on the move out to the pocket, little sidearm like sling that remind me just a little bit. Little Aaron Rodgers-esque, little Patrick Mahomes, just a little sprinkled in there, just a little bit. Just a little. And Dylan Sampson, obviously. And Deshaun Bishop have been unbelievable running the football, of course, with an excellent Tennessee offensive line and excellent weapons. We knew Tennessee was a good offensive team, though. It's defensively where they've made their mark. So first and foremost, there's a kid for Tennessee who played unbelievable against Oklahoma. Okay, his name is Jermod McCoy. And according to Pro Football Focus, they do college too. I talk about Pro Football Focus all the time. They do NFL. They also do college. Okay? Against Oklahoma, Jermod McCoy played 48 coverage snaps. He allowed 0 catches on 4 targets thrown his way. He had 1 interception, 1 pass breakup, and when throwing to him or in the direction of Mr. McCoy, quarterbacks had a passer rating of 0. 0. For the record, your passer rating is in the 30s if you just spike the football. 0. Lockdown corner. With a great pass rush led by, in my opinion, the most talented defensive player in the country, a kid by the name of James Pierce, who's going to be a high pick in this upcoming NFL draft. But don't just take my word for it. Take the numbers word for it. Alfred put together a nice little graphic here. You'll see at the top of it. Just show it right here. Tennessee is the real deal. So offensively, 4th in the nation in points per game, 6th in yards per game, 5th in rush yards per game, and tied for 3rd in terms of scoring margin. Tennessee wins their games on average by 40 points. But it's defensively where this team has separated itself from the rest of the competition. They're number 1, numero uno, in college football in terms of total yards allowed per game. 8.3 points allowed per game. That's 5th in the country. Vols don't even give up double digits. Okay? 116 pass yards allowed per game. That's tied for 6th in the nation. All right? 37 rush yards allowed per game. That is 2nd in the country. And the Vols, in their last 20 quarters, have given up 2 touchdowns. 2. And you see right there, and that's the big difference right there. Strength of schedule. Tennessee ranks 5th. Ohio State's played virtually nobody. Texas, well, they did play Michigan on the road to the Big House and dominated the Wolverines. Texas is worthy of being that number 1 spot. What I will tell you is this, though. The battle for supremacy in college football right now is between the 2 UTs, the 2 orange-colored UT schools, Texas, Tennessee. Ohio State, love their roster, and I've been a Ryan Day, not fan, but defender. They don't have a defense like this team does, and we certainly haven't got the opportunity to see against superior competition, or at least equal level competition. Strength of schedule is nowhere near the Tennessee Volunteers. Georgia, I don't know. I saw Georgia go on the road to Lexington and win by a single point, 13-12. Struggled to move the ball against Kentucky, who we know is obviously comfortably within the bottom half of the SEC, a loaded SEC, mind you. Alabama, I think Alabama's right in that conversation with Tennessee, and I think they're going to beat Georgia this weekend. I really, really do. Really like Alabama in the spot as a home underdog. I get Kalen DeBoer and Jalen Milroe as a home underdog. Are you kidding me? Give me that. Respect to Georgia, but I got Alabama winning that football game because of some of the issues that I detailed with Georgia. Ole Miss, don't trust their defense, and I've never seen Lane Kiffin win a big game that actually matters. Look up and down the list. By the way, Miami, and I was a big Miami believer this season. I think I've been validated in that, and a big-time Cam Ward fan. They're not as explosive, and they can't play. They can't run the football quite to the level that Tennessee can run it on a consistent basis. What are you saying, Bryson? Here's what I'm saying. The Tennessee Volunteers are the best team in the country right now. Texas has earned the right to be number one in terms of their previous resume and the roster going into this year. Going into the big house, one of the biggest wins of college football this season, going into Michigan's house, a Michigan team who beat USC with virtually no passing game. And I really like USC this year. Texas went in, smoked them from the jump. Now, he's a different quarterback. I get that. Different circumstances, obviously, for Michigan. Texas came in and took care of business in Ann Arbor. They've earned the right to be the number one team in the country. All due respect. Tennessee from start to finish. Shouldn't say finish. We're nowhere near the finish. We're 4 games in for Tennessee. They face as hard a competition as anybody. Certainly of the major powers in the sport. And they've been unbelievably dominant on both sides of the ball. They can run it right up on you. They could stop the run. They don't give up many yards. They get a lot of yards. They don't give up many points. They score a lot of points. Folks, Tennessee averages scoring 49 points per game. They average giving up 8 points a game. And they played NC State. Now, NC State isn't exactly special, but NC State was ranked at the time with Grayson McCall. And oh, by the way, they go into Norman, Oklahoma against a really good Oklahoma Sooners squad, beat them by double digits. And that game was in Tennessee's grasp, in Tennessee's control, virtually the whole way through. Efficiency from Nico, good play calling, good situational play calling by Josh Heupel. Tim Banks doing an unbelievable, listen, I don't know what the Tennessee Volunteers are paying Tim Banks. I don't know what he's making. I don't know what his salary is. Listen, he's a blank check guy. There's certain guys in sports or certain individuals in sports where I don't care what I'm paying you. I need you. That's Tennessee with Tim Banks. They put resources into that defense. Like 2 years ago, Tennessee was the number one team in the country. Defense wasn't that good. Had some nice players. Byron Young, who's in the NFL now with the Rams. They had some players here and there, but they weren't terribly special. This is the best team in the country right now. Now, we won't get a whole lot of a big look at that for Tennessee the next 2 games because they play Arkansas and Florida, both of which they will mollywop. But then they're going to play the Tide in Neyland Stadium. Get Kalen. I said before the season, I was devastated. Oh, sorry, not devastated. I love Nick Saban, but I was jumping for joy when Nick Saban retired, and I saw they hired Kalen DeBoer. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We can't catch a break. Alabama's still Alabama. You play Alabama. A few weeks after that, you play Georgia, in Athens, Georgia. If Tennessee splits those 2 games, and we'll see what, of course, happens as in terms of the landscape of the rest of the country, Tennessee's probably going to be the SEC championship game. And so, for this week's edition of the Vol View, no game tomorrow. Tennessee's on an off week. But from what I've seen through these first 4 games, and I monitor college football closely. I watch a lot of Texas. I watch a lot of Georgia, Bama, the big powers, Ole Miss, all these schools. Not saying they can't. I'm not saying Tennessee's like head and shoulders. They're not 2019 LSU by any stretch of the imagination. Nobody's shown me that they are more consistently productive on both sides of the ball than they are. When that team shows up, we can have a different conversation. But thus far, with the 5th toughest schedule in the country through 4 games, Tennessee's undefeated and has smoked the competition. So, for this week's edition of the Vol View, Tennessee's coming. And they are rolling fast. NBC in the comments. I think that's my dad. He said, "What did Colin Cowherd say?" He said, "Colin Cowherd said Tennessee's gonna win the national championship." Now, like I put that in my IG stories. Listen, a lot of y'all out there know Cowherd is like my idol in the business. Like people like Cowherd, Nick Wright, Stephen A. Smith are kind of like the three that I really look up to the most in the sports content creating business. And when I heard Cowherd say that, when he was doing his weekly segment with Joel Klatt, another guy who I have utmost respect for. Klatt is as good as they come when it comes to talking about college football. Got a little bit excited, I'm not going to lie. Got real excited. I'm not going to go that far quite yet. But I'm saying in the here and now, no team has proven that they're better than Tennessee. Texas, you can make that case. And they've earned the right to be number one. I've yet to not that's to say Ohio State's not capable, but due to their strength of schedule or lack thereof, we really haven't seen it. Who's their toughest opponent? Marshall? Nothing against the Thundering Herd, but not exactly the Oklahoma Sooners in Norman on a night game where College game day's there. There's levels to this. Ohio State's great, but Tennessee's proven to me thus far they're just a little bit better. So that is it for this week's edition of the Vol View. We'll be back on this segment at least next week. Tennessee and Arkansas. Very excited to break that down. Tennessee elite offense. Even better defense. I'd argue the best defense in the country currently. That's it for this week's edition of the Vol View.
Football time in Tennessee.
Listen, 2022 is an exciting year for the Vols. It really was. I mean, there was a point in time where it looked like our quarterback, Hendon Hooker, was going to win the Heisman Trophy. Even despite the injury, he should have gotten an invite to New York. That was a crime committed by the college football media that I will never forgive them for. But the win against Alabama, destroying LSU on the road, I was like, hang on a second. Like this team could go the distance. Now the defense had the stink up of the century against South Carolina, the South Carolina team that was okay. And Hendon Hooker got hurt in that season, went up in smoke. And then last year, Tennessee was solid. Tennessee was a top 25 team and proved over the course of that season. It's about as exciting as a time for Tennessee football as they've had since the firing of Philip Fulmer, the legendary college football Hall of Fame coach. So tell you what, it's coming. Tennessee is they're in really good shape moving forward. I'm trying to get real quick this graphic up on this graphic ready for our next segment where we predict all of the games. Let's see what we got up in here. Because I want to make sure we put into, because I do a segment every Wednesday carving up the context. I want to put into context what my predictions are coming into this little week 2 stretch, this week 4 stretch in this time for the National Football League. I apologize because sometimes this gives some problems. Are we gonna be able to get it? Hang on. I want to make sure we can, again, provide context for what was not a great week 2 or week 3 for me, but setting the stage for what I think is going to be an excellent week 4 in terms of predicting games, in terms of if I were a Bettin Man, all the above. I feel really good about it. So, okay, I think we do have it on the screen. So let's go ahead and put that up there. My win-loss record a week ago, and in terms of the context of this entire season. So week 3 last week, not great. 7-9 against the spread was actually pretty good. I got the upset of the week correct. If I were a Bettin Man, I think I went 1-2, so not great. But against the spread, I was actually better than just straight up picking the games and the money line. So in that regard, we're fine. We're moving forward. I feel good about myself in terms of my prediction. So let's go and get the background music going. Let's predict week 4 NFL Sunday action in the National Football League. Here we go. We'll start with my first segment, and it's my favorite segment every week on this show. It is called
Bettin Man.
We're a Bettin Man. Oh, I'm loving this. I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, my Pittsburgh Steelers, taking on the Indianapolis Colts in Indy. Steelers are favored on the road at -2.5. Here's what I'm looking at, folks. The fact that the Steelers are the best defense in the National Football League. Second, if my numbers were correct, second against the pass, sixth against the run, number one scoring defense in the National Football League, giving up 8.7 points per game. I said earlier in my segment when I was talking about the Cowboys' upcoming schedule, I said they're about to face a defense. Their next game is against a defense that I think has 5 elite players. Okay? Joey Porter Jr., Minka Fitzpatrick, Patrick Queen, Alex Highsmith, and the man, the myth, the legend himself, the best defensive player in the National Football League, T.J. Watt. And T.J. Watt and that defense going to have a field day against an Anthony Richardson who, while incredibly talented with an elite coach, I think, at least an elite offensive coach in Shane Steichen, God bless him, Anthony Richardson wore Tim Tebow's number at Florida. He obviously played at Florida, and his completion percentage looks like Tim Tebow's. Anthony Richardson, folks, is completing 49% of his passes. You're telling me that that's going to work? It didn't work against the Green Bay Packers. Now, Green Bay's got a solid defense, much improved. It ain't Pittsburgh. You struggled against the Green Bay Packers. You think it's going to work against Pittsburgh and that pass rush with Mike Tomlin coming in? Justin Fields playing efficient football, getting it done. Calvin Austin breaking away on some long touchdowns. George Pickens doing his thing. By the way, the fact that the Colts have arguably the single worst rush defense in professional football. Oh, this is a Najee Harris, Jalen Warren fest. Justin Fields going to be running himself. Give me the Steelers. All right, minus the 2.5 and in a double-digit win by a final score of 24-13 over the Indianapolis Colts. If I were a bet man, take Pittsburgh minus the 2.5 and to win this thing, obviously outright, 24-13 over the Indianapolis Colts. Love my Steelers in that spot. If the line was like 4.5, 5, maybe I'd feel it would not make it if I were a bet man. Let's put it that way. But the Steelers absolutely win this matchup in every which way. Denver Broncos, New York Jets. Listen, the Jets fans are going to get mad at me for this, but I think for the second straight week, this is an insane line. Jets at home, certainly, yes, but against a Broncos team coached by Sean Payton and a Bo Nix who looked really good last week, and a Broncos defense led by Pat Surtain that is really, really solid. The numbers are almost across the board, top 10 in the NFL. The Jets are favored by 8.5 points. You can probably tell by the tone of voice that I'm showing right now where I'm kind of leaning in the spot. So listen, the Jets have extra time to prepare. This is probably the biggest story of this game is that it's the real Nathaniel Hackett revenge game. Yeah, last year, Nathaniel Hackett, who failed obviously miserably as the Broncos head coach, OC now with the Jets a year ago, but there was no Aaron Rodgers. Like this is the real Nathaniel Hackett revenge game. Denver looked really good last week offensively and defensively against a solid Tampa Bay Bucs team on the road. That was another game, by the way, where Denver was a 6.5-point dog in Tampa. I'm like, this has Denver written all over it. I took the Bucs to win, but the Broncos to cover, and that's why I'm doing this spot. I'm going to take the Jets to win this game. 8.5 points is insanity in this spot. Denver's a good football team. I should say a good football. They're a very solid football team that's building their roster the right way. I think Bo Nix is not special, but if he's with Sean Payton, I like him because I like Sean Payton a lot as an offensive mind. Jets win this one 23-20. 8.5 is insane. Take the Broncos and the points. If this were like, again, kind of like the Steelers game, if this were around like 5.5, which I feel like would be a perfectly reasonable line, okay, 8.5 is crazy. Jets win this one 23-20 over the Denver Broncos. Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. Probably one of my top 3 games this week to watch. This does not make any of my segments this week in terms of my pick'em. I just want to sit down and watch this game. Okay, it's gonna be on the quad screen with the Steelers. Me and my sister are probably gonna watch it. She'll be watching the Packers. I'll be watching the Steelers. But Green Bay at home at Lambeau against an undefeated Vikings team, favored -3. So the big story, the big question is going to be: is Jordan Love going to play this game? He's questionable. Schefter reported today he's listed as questionable. You have to imagine he's obviously got a better chance of playing this game than he had it playing against the Titans last week. Here's what I do know. Pittsburgh's got the best defense. Minnesota's number 2. Okay, almost again, across the board, the number one in some categories, number two in others. Brian Flores should get a head coaching job after this year. I get it didn't work in Miami. I'm willing to give a guy like that, a younger coach who's really, really smart, really good at what he does, a second opportunity to improve his ability, of course, to interact with certain players. We know him and Tua didn't get along. I'm willing to give him a second opportunity after this year to get along with his quarterback, right? So Flores has been awesome, manning the offense. And Kevin O'Connell's been almost equally awesome. Flores with the defense, O'Connell with the offense. Sam Darnold leading the NFL in touchdown passes. He's on some MVP boards right now. This is a Green Bay defense that's really good. Takes the ball away. They had a pick six last week off Will Levis, which feels like it's kind of a weekly occurrence. But hey, they took advantage of the opportunity that was given to them. But in this spot, listen, Green Bay is opportunistic. They take the ball away. Sam Darnold, we know he's got some interceptions this year. He can sometimes be just a little bit reckless throwing the football. And again, in this spot, I get why folks would, maybe like the Vikings in this spot. And again, if they win this game in Lambeau, then I'm in on the Vikings train. If I'm late, that's fine. If I got to be in the caboose, okay. I'm perfectly fine with that. But I need to see them go to Lambeau with Sam Darnold, with this defense. My gut tells me Jordan Love plays. Matt LaFleur has been, I think, the coach of the year so far this season. I will take the Packers in a kind of a hard-fought defensive type game, 20-16. They do barely cover the 3 points. They hand the Vikings their first loss of 2024. Hey, if I'm wrong, then I am willing to get on the Vikings train and at least entertain the idea that, hey, they might be a contender. It's weird to say with Sam Darnold. I don't know how right that feels coming out of my mouth. If they win this game, though, I'll feel that way. Certainly, I view the Packers as a contender, especially if Jordan Love's back in the lineup. Even if Malik Willis is in, he's been pretty good. You have to imagine he won't be as good against Brian Flores as he was against the Titans defense last week. But I like Green Bay in this spot. This is going to be a classic. I just want to sit back and enjoy it. Packers win 20-16 over the Vikings. Moving on to another divisional matchup, the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. This almost made the If I Were a Bettin Man segment. So Atlanta's favored in this game, -2.5 against New Orleans. So these are two teams that I had in Bryson's Best 10 a week and a half ago, coming into week 3. Saints were 2-0, Falcons were 1-1. They come off, obviously, that emotional win in Philadelphia. Both teams lost. Saints dropped out of Bryson's Best 10. Falcons stayed in at number 10. I like Kirk Cousins more than I like Derek Carr in this spot. I think Atlanta's defense has more consistently good players, good to great players. Matthew Judon, Justin Simmons, who's been really good, by the way, for this defense. Jesse Bates as well. Seeing what those guys have, I like Atlanta's defense. Here's the optimistic side of me that picked the Falcons to win the NFC South and still feels good about it. Okay? Their 2 losses come to Pittsburgh, which that's, as I said coming into week 1 when I picked my Steelers to win, that was going to be an institutional win for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's Mike Tomlin. It's, again, against a guy in Raheem Morris as in his first game as the head coach of the Falcons. Kirk Cousins' first game as the Falcons quarterback. Older quarterback at least, off an Achilles injury. Pittsburgh's defense. It was going to be a Steelers home game because Steelers fans, hey, we travel with the best of them. And then the Falcons' second loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, where if not for a god-awful call, not referring to the refs, I'm referring to the offense, run the ball horizontal to the line of scrimmage on 4th and short, could have easily won that game. So I like Atlanta a lot in the spot. They're at home. This Saints run was cute. It really was. Atlanta's going to win this game 24-17 over the New Orleans Saints. Like I said, this was almost on Bryce's Best 10. Could Alvin Kamara have a big game? Potentially. That's my only concern in this spot, in picking the Falcons. But listen, this is a big-time spot for Atlanta. They do not want to fall to 1-3 in a division that, some Tampa Bay's gotten off to a good start. Andy Dalton's doing his thing with the Carolina Panthers. We'll get to that game soon. But I like Atlanta in this spot. It's Dennis Allen, Derek Carr. Don't trust either. Kubiak, I think, is great. The offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, doing what he's been doing with the Saints offense. Kudos to him. I like the Atlanta Falcons in this spot. It is now time for, I don't even want to, just yell it out, upset of the week, because it's only it's a 2-point underdog, but I just really like them in this spot. So it is time for my upset of the week. Give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Philadelphia Eagles, 26-20. Tampa Bay wins this one 26-20 over Philadelphia as a 2-point home dog. And here's why. So look, again, Tampa Bay, 2-point underdogs. Now, the Bucs have a beat-up secondary. And it's why Detroit moved the ball on them as well as they did 2 weeks ago. It's why Bo Nix of the Broncos carved them up, using the name of the show, for 60 minutes, particularly at least in the first half. They did those first few drives. It became very apparent. Once Denver went up 17-0, Tampa Bay's not going to win this game. They just can't stop anybody in the passing game. But here's the good news for the Bucs and bad news for Philly. Devontae Smith, because of a very dirty hit they suffered against the New Orleans Saints last week, out. A.J. Brown, doubtful. Or not doubtful, rather. No, I'm sorry. Questionable. So, likely, certainly no Devontae Smith and probably no A.J. Brown, who didn't really practice much throughout the week. That is bad news for a Philadelphia Eagles team that we know lost in the playoffs to this Tampa Bay team and got smoked. And yet and still, Philadelphia's defense, basically the same as it was a year ago in terms of the majority of their personnel. And then as far as the coaching staff, they actually got worse in terms of the play calling department with Kellen Moore. So I listen, I think Baker Mayfield could have a big day. Chris Godwin potentially doing what he does in the slot. Darius Slay, by the way, dealing with injuries. I like Tampa Bay in this spot. I cannot believe that they're underdogs in this spot. Give me the Tampa Bay Bucs in my ups of the week, plus the 2 to win this game by a final score of 26-20 over the Philadelphia Eagles. By the way, that's not even the biggest dog that I'm predicting to win, but just in that spot at home, that just felt right. Upset of the week, Tampa Bay Bucs over the Philadelphia Eagles. Moving on now. This was almost Bryson's Bleak bet. It almost was. Just because it's a weird one. The winless Cincinnati Bengals and the one-win Carolina Panthers. Those are words I did not think I would say in sequence coming into this game in week 4 before the year started. Bengals on the road, though, favored minus 4.5. So, look, this is a do or die for Cincinnati. If they lose, they get dropped to 0-4. They're done. In that division, the toughest division in the league, along with the NFC North, the AFC North, they're cooked. Okay, Baltimore, are they getting their act together? Maybe. Cleveland, they screw everything up. And the Steelers are 3-0, and I think they're going to be 4-0 after this weekend with Mike Tomlin. You're not running them down. Not with that Steelers defense. So they have to win. Carolina, though, looks to have found a pulse offensively. Andy Dalton became the first quarterback of the season. He's not the only one at this point now, but he's the first one of the season to have 300 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Liked what I saw from him in terms of command in the pocket. By the way, I can argue that this is actually an easier defense to face than what he faced last week with the Las Vegas Raiders. Listen, Cincinnati's defense, I think they ranked 26th in the NFL. Like what I'm seeing from Trey Hendrickson. Don't really like what I'm seeing for the rest of their defense, particularly their back four. Not the back four, but the back end of their defense. I'm not picking Joe Burrow to lose to the Carolina Panthers. I'm just not going to do it. I'll take Cincinnati minus the 4.5. I don't feel great about it. That was almost Bryce's Bleak bet, but I'll go Cincinnati. Listen, by the way, sneaky revenge game for Andy Dalton. He obviously used to be the quarterback of the Bengals, but I'll take Cincinnati 27-21 over Carolina. Am I confident in it? Not really. There's one game I'm less confident in. That will be Bryce's Bleak bet a little bit later in the segment, but I'll take the Bengals by a final score of 27-21. Another divisional matchup. My man, still believe in him. Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars going to Houston, Texas, and taking on the Texans. And the spot, Houston is a 6-point favorite. Now, this line was around 7. Some sportsbooks even had it at 7.5 earlier in this week. It's come down to 6. So for whatever reason, Vegas, and they liked the Jags last week. I went with Vegas and my heart to a certain degree because I'm a Trevor Lawrence fan, and that 47-10. And the Jaguars, again, as I talked about in the show, are kind of cursed because they disrespected the terrible towel. So that in and of itself is going to be something to overcome. But the last time these two teams faced off, in Houston, by the way, Jacksonville won. Trevor outplayed CJ Stroud. It's a divisional game. Jacksonville is, again, similar response to Cincinnati. If Jacksonville falls 0-4, they're cooked. They're done. It's over. There's going to be a level of desperation out of the Jags. And as for Houston, hey, I haven't seen them put together a complete game through 3 games this season. They had an elite offensive performance in week 1, a terrible, not a very good defensive performance. Week 2, excellent defensively, not very good offensively. And then last week, they just got smoked across the board. They scored 7, gave up 33. What do you want me to do? Well, they weren't very good, and they fell on Bryson's best 10 because of it. Folks, you don't know how bad I want to predict the Jacksonville Jaguars to win this game. And I would be over the moon. I will be so obnoxious on Monday's show if they win. Trevor, you haven't won a game since around Thanksgiving last year. I believe in you, sir. You got to get me a win. You got it. We're in week 4, man. You got to get me a W. So with an objective sense of thinking, I'll take the Jags and the points +6. It's a divisional matchup. But I'll take the Texans to win outright. 28-23. This is a game I hope I am dead wrong on. I would love if the Jacksonville Jaguars got the job done. And I'll take the points. It's going to be close. Neither defense I trust, but Jacksonville's is a little bit worse than Houston's. So Texans win 28-23. All right, it's now time for my... Is it the next game? All right, my next game in my favorite segment that I do every week. It is a call once again.
Yeah, Bettin Man.
If I were a bet man, I love this one. This is my favorite bet of the week. Los Angeles Rams, Chicago Bears from the Windy City. The Bears are 3-point favorites. So both teams coming in at 1-1. Rams coming in after their first win of the season. A crazy finish against the San Francisco 49ers divisional opponent in LA, where we know that might as well have been a Niners home game. The Niners fans always outnumber the Rams fans in Los Angeles. So you have that and a Bears team that has an unbelievable defense. They've been outstanding, particularly the pass rush, but just cannot get it going offensively, particularly the run game, which has been arguably the worst in the NFL. I picked the Bears last week in this very segment if I were a bet man, because the fact that, hey, the Bears can't get a run game going, but the Colts can't stop the run. What happened, though? Against the worst run defense in the NFL, Caleb Williams threw over 50 times. That's a play calling problem, and that's a running the football problem. That's an offensive line problem. I still like the Rams front 7. There's Puka Nakua's out. Cooper Kupp's out. But if we know anything about Matthew Stafford, and if we know anything about Sean McVay, they can make Island of Misfit toy guys work. We can make them work. And by the way, looks to be getting back some offensive linemen. I think the kid, is it Note Boom, the left tackle? Looks like he's coming back from injury, which is going to be huge against this Bears pass rush. This can be a close game. It's going to be, again, knockout, drag-out type of a game. Listen, to me, the deciding factor, obviously Stafford's better than Caleb, even though y'all know I love Caleb. I think the kid's going to be freaking awesome, particularly once he gets the right coaching staff around him. But Matthew Stafford does have the right coach with him. Sean McVay, Matt Eberflus, that's not close. If I were a bet man, take the Rams and the points and to win this game. Take the money line as well. Take them to win this game by a final score of 20-16 in Chicago over the Bears. Rams win 20-16 over the Chicago Bears. If I were a bet man, take Los Angeles +3. There you go. So, moving on to the Washington Commanders and the Arizona Cardinals in their first afternoon slate of games. This can be a fun game. So, both defenses, for different reasons, I don't think are very good at all. But Washington's defense, particularly on the back end, it might be the worst in the NFL. Their secondary is trash. Straight up. It's bad. Despite Dan Quinn, who I think is an elite defensive mind, calling it, they just don't. I talked to my man Parnell. Shout out to Parnell. Subscribe to the Sports PSP podcast. Had him on the show on Wednesday. And I asked him the question. I said, is it part of it partly a Dan Quinn problem? Is it sort of a personnel problem? And Parnell, who watches more Commanders football than I do, was like, no, it's a personnel problem. The defense just isn't that good. And all the pass rush and their secondary is atrocious. But as for Arizona, their defense isn't great at stopping the run on a consistent basis. Well, we know the Commanders can run the ball. Of course, Jaden Daniels, also Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler. Doesn't look like Eckler's going to be available with the concussion, but you are going to see points. This game's in Arizona. It's a 3.5-point spread. Vegas really likes the Cardinals in this spot. All the wise guys, all the bettors out there. I like Arizona as well. I could see Marvin Harrison Jr. going for $180. I'm dead. I could see Marvin Harrison, $180 receiving, 2 touchdowns. He and Kyler are simpatico on the money. It's a short week for Washington, in which they played in Cincinnati on the East Coast, flew back to Washington. Now they got to fly out to the West Coast to Arizona. It's a quick turnaround. I'm going to go with the Commanders in the spot. High-scoring game by a final score of 30-26 over Washington. Listen, I wasn't exactly a Cardinals believer coming into the season, but I did say it was going to be a fun offensive team to watch. Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr., it's going to be a fun offensive team to watch. They've got pieces. So I'll take the Cardinals in the spot. Minus the 3.5 to win this game at 30-26 over the Commanders. So next up, this is our biggest spread of the year. thus far. New England Patriots, San Francisco 49ers, and the Niners are favored -10. So great news for San Francisco. George Kittle is back in the lineup, or at least appears to be the case, given the recent reports coming out of San Francisco. The Patriots, at this point, their best news is they had 3 extra days to prepare. I don't think I should spend a lot of time in this game. The Patriots might have the least talented roster in the NFL, and even despite the injuries, the Niners still have a top 10 roster at the bare minimum in the NFL. The defense is getting some pieces back. Obviously, Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, 2 of the best elite defensive players in the NFL. Hargrave is gone for the season. It's not going to hurt them against the Patriots. Ramondre Stevenson's the best player, but the Patriots O-line is god-awful. Purdy's going to cook. Kittle could have a couple touchdowns. Jordan Mace going to do his thing. It's going to be a block party in San Francisco. Give me the Niners with the spot. I don't even need to spend a lot of time in this. 35-13 over the Patriots. This should be an absolute walkover. If the Niners lose this game, I am literally done on them as contenders. Like, I'm not even kidding. They're cooked. But they're not going to lose this game. 35-13 over the New England Patriots at home. It is now time for Bryson's Bleak Bet. Is the one game every week that I have absolutely zero confidence in predicting, but hey, you gotta predict them all, I guess. Cleveland Browns, Las Vegas Raiders from Sin City. Cleveland on the road. Favored -2.5. So these are 2-1-2 teams coming off of tough losses. The Raiders losing to a Panthers team that didn't look like they belonged in the National Football League, for crying out loud, at home. A 6.5-point favorites, which I did take the Panthers to win that game, and nonetheless, did see that kind of performance coming. And as for the Browns, I was correct in their last game, in which I predicted the Giants in my upset of the week. Deshaun Watson wasn't very good, wasn't very accurate. The Browns defense looks to have kind of tailed off a little bit. Myles Garrett's dealing with injuries. The offensive line for the Browns is dealing with some injuries as well. Here's what I've come to. Look, the Raiders' 2 best players in their team by far are Max Crosby and Devontae Adams. Both guys are out. The Browns' offensive line deal with injuries. Antonio Pierce called out his team after that game against Carolina. Some guys are making business decisions, basically question their effort. So I think you will see a more intense sense of urgency for the Las Vegas Raiders in the spot. Coaching matchup, I'm going to go Stefanski over Antonio Pierce. I guess I'll go the Browns 21-16. I mean, they're missing Max Crosby. Like, they're not going to get a ton of pressure, I would think, at least, on Deshaun Watson. Bryce's Bleak Bet, I'm sure you can hear it in the tone of my voice. If I'm wrong on this game, I won't be shocked, because these teams are not very good. Okay, moving to our next game. Again, the final game in my favorite segment of the week. It is called Bettin Man. All right, Bettin Man. It's risky. I get it. But sometimes you got to take risk in life. Sometimes you got to take big swings. Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Chargers. Kansas City favored by 8.5 points on the road. I can't think of a more beat-up team coming into Week 4 than the LA Chargers. They have some of it by their own doing, because I said a week ago they should not have played Justin Herbert against a defense as physical as my Steelers, given that they had the Kansas City Chiefs coming up. Now, Herbert may play. He has not been ruled out. He said it at a local presser in LA, or his weekly presser in LA. He's trying to get back on the field. He's trying to be ready to go for this game against Kansas City, in which could put the Chargers in first place in that division. This is a big, big game for both of these teams. Kansas City, no Isaiah Pacheco? No problem. Carson Steele was pretty good running the football last week against the Atlanta Falcons. Travis Kelce, no show through the first 3 games. Well, good news, you have your Rasheed Rice. And for all the talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, they have taken a step back offensively. Given what we expect from them, yeah, but facing the toughest schedule through 3 weeks, they're 7th in the NFL in scoring. So they've been fine. Their defense hasn't been fine. It's been incredible. Not a great performance against the Bengals necessarily, but we're good against Baltimore, holding an explosive Ravens offense and a great Ravens running game to 20 points. And that spot against the Falcons last week. Now, some of this was Atlanta just choking all over themselves with these 4th down play calls. Like, what are you doing? Kansas City's defense flies all over the field. Chris Jones doing his thing. I love Nick Bolton, some of the linebackers that Kansas City has. Jim Harbaugh is going to look to establish the run. His strategy is going to be just keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. Joe Alt, probably not going to play. Rashawn Slater is not going to play. Joey Bosa is not going to play. Derwin James, suspension, is not going to play. Justin Herbert, iffy, and if he plays, he's a 50% quarterback on the field due to the ankle injury. Listen, it's just too many bodies to lose. Y'all know I think this is this matchup that we're seeing on Sunday in LA, I think is going to be an AFC Championship preview. I picked the Chiefs to three-peat, but I also picked the Chargers to be the shock team like the Lions were last year. Like I picked the Lions to be the shock team last year, and they were. I think that's going to be the case with the Chargers. I really like their roster. It's better than folks give it credit for. Coaching staff's great. Quarterback's great. But the quarterback's beat up, may not even play. His two best tackles, the best tackle duo in the league, will not suit up. Give me the Chiefs. If I were a Bettin Man, take Kansas City in this spot, minus the 8.5, 27-17 over the Los Angeles Chargers. Listen, I'm going to be straight with you. If the Chargers were healthy, I'd probably pick the Chargers to win this game. I really would. Just too many guys to miss, too many defensive players, offensive linemen. It's just not, they just don't have enough to beat a Kansas City Chiefs team that, contrary to popular belief, they're not living up to expectations, and yet they have a top 5 defense and the 7th best offense in terms of scoring. I think Kansas City's going to be fine. If I were a bet man, take the Chiefs, minus the 8.5. Finally, this is going to be a fun one. Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens from Baltimore. So the Ravens in this spot favored minus 2.5. So this is going to be a fun one. So Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have faced off 3 times in their career. These are 2 of the 5 best quarterbacks in the game. No questions asked whatsoever. Josh Allen right now, in my opinion, would be league MVP. Lamar Jackson was really good against Dallas. I think made the throw of the game on that 3rd down and 6, because if he doesn't, give the momentum Dallas has, I think Dak's going to lead him to a game when he drives. So it was a clutch throw by Lamar to put them in position to get their first win of the season. Here's the thing, though. If I can pull up the stats here, okay? Josh Allen is 2-1 against Lamar Jackson. But in those 3 games, neither quarterback has been good whatsoever. In those games, Josh Allen completes 52% of his passes. Lamar completes 64. 64 is not terrible. 52 is. Josh Allen, 215 total yards. Lamar Jackson, even less. 199 total yards. Josh Allen, 4-2 touchdown interception ratio. It's solid. Lamar Jackson, 4-4 touchdown interception ratio. Not great at all. Josh Allen, passer rating of 72, not good, below average. Lamar Jackson, passer rating of 75, not good, below average. So usually when we talk about these matchups with elite quarterbacks, we expect to see elite play at that. We haven't seen it. Now, I really like Buffalo's defense, like some of the young pieces they have there. As for Buffalo's offense, I think for the first time in Josh Allen's career, he's got a reliable running game with him. He's got James Cook. He's got an elite offensive line. He's got, the Bills play a lot of 12 personnel with the 2 tight end set. Kincaid is coming into his own. Keon Coleman caught his first career touchdown pass, and I've been a Khalil Shakir fan since last season. For the Ravens, though, home game. They should, in all honesty, be 2-1. They shouldn't have blown that game to the Las Vegas Raiders. Kansas City outplayed them. Kansas City deserved to win that game. This is Lamar. It's a national TV game. He struggles in the playoffs. He's pretty good statistically in terms of his national TV games in recent years. I like Lamar a lot in the spot. It's a desperate Ravens team. Again, similar to a lesser degree, obviously, but similar to the Cincinnati Bengals. They can't fall to 1-3 in this division. So again, not betting on this game. It's not the Bleak bet. No upsets. I'm going to take the Ravens minus 2.5 to win this one by a walk-off field goal by Justin Tucker, who's not gotten off to a good start this season. This field goal is going to be within 50 yards. Ravens win this one 26-23. Probably leave my show with it on Monday. It's going to be a fun watch. Lamar, Josh Allen. I think Lamar gets the upper hand. The Ravens win this one by a final score of 26-23. I will have to say I won't be exactly mad if Buffalo wins as a Steelers fan. The Steelers can go into Week 5, 4-0. The Bengals maybe lose to the Panthers. I don't think they will, but it'll be close. What a great weekend of football we got. Are you kidding me? Alabama, Georgia. You got freaking Allen versus Lamar. You got, knock on wood, hopefully Mahomes versus Herbert, even though I like the Chiefs minus the 8.5. Again, Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, gone. Derwin James out. Joey Bosa. They just don't have enough guys. This could be a big Chris Jones game. They really could be. Listen, Steve Spagnuolo is famous for those blitz packages on 3rd down. It could be, whether it's Herbert or Taylor Heineke, it could be a very, very long day for those guys. So I definitely like the Chiefs in the spot. The Chargers were healthy. I might pick them. I'm very high in the Chargers this year. But I'm going to roll with the Kansas City Chiefs. All right. That's all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and And please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. We are on the road. Hopefully, the next goal is to get to 5,000 subscribers. That is our next benchmark we are trying to hit. So if you've not subscribed, just takes a couple seconds. Hit the big red subscribe button down there, and boom, you're part of the Carving It Up family. If you have subscribed, appreciate it. Thank you so much. It means everything to me, to my family, to everybody involved with the show. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live, except for your sleeping cat. Again, the effects of the hurricane, we've gotten some of it here in Tennessee, and Nealon was pissed. Cats don't like water, man. They just flat out don't like water. Some do. The majority are not crazy about it. And my man Nealon is no exception. Also, just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts, via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Check out my man Patrick Brown, writing some great pieces for the Grid's website. As for the rest of our content creators, check out all of our stuff on YouTube and anywhere that you get your podcasts and anywhere that you check social media. Well, our clips are everywhere, man. It's everywhere. We are growing. So definitely be sure to stay tuned to our content. And the 8 o'clock spot, by the way, every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Great game show. You definitely want to stay tuned in for that. That's like our big show on the Grid. So definitely watch that. All right. Great football weekend. Baseball coming to an end. I'm already seeing some NBA headlines. Like we are about to enter October. We're this close. The best month of the sports calendar. It is. Listen, to quote the Harbaughs, who's got better than us? Nobody. Man, I can't wait. All right, I will see you on Monday. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that impacts every single one of us as Americans on a day-to-day basis. And no matter what anybody tries to tell you, oh, it's not a problem, or, oh, there's only one solution to the problem, both are BS. Both are not true. It's a huge problem that needs a number of nuanced solutions to address it. And especially this being an election year, if there's anybody running, be they in office or not, that shows no sense of urgency at addressing this issue, got to vote against them. We have to solve this problem as soon as possible to save as many lives as we can in this beautiful country. And so, very, very important. All right. Bama, Georgia. I got Bama, by the way. Want that on the record. I got the Tide. I'm not gonna say their catchphrase because it just tastes like poison coming in my mouth. I'm not saying it, but Bama wins this one and elevates to me to the second best team in the college football playoff. The playoff rankings haven't come out. They're still going by the AP. But next week it'll say Texas 1 and Alabama 2. And I think Tennessee's better than both. Anyways, that's all we got. See you on Monday. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. I'm telling you, the Vols are coming, baby. Even though we're off, they're coming, baby. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. And be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.